And a TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast alongside Scott Shapiro. I'm Jeremy Plonk for First Bet and Express Bet. We are just a week away from the Breeders' Cup World Championships at Del Mar. A lot of the players already gathering where the surf and turf meet there. Scott Shapiro, you've been to Del Mar many times. Horses who seem to show up at Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup win from anywhere. So I don't know if there's any home court advantage. Horses love it at Del Mar as much as the people.
Yeah, Del Mar, a great place to have the Breeders' Cup. Place like you said, probably one of the tracks I've been to most in my life at this point. Might not make it back, but I was there for a Breeders' Cup and saw Gun Runner win. And if you're heading out there this year, you're in the area and you go to them regularly, I hope you enjoy yourself. And yeah, I mean, I think when the rails are in on the turf course, which of course they will be for the World Championships, for the most part, Del Mar is pretty kind. A few horses from time to time tend to maybe not like the weather that we would, that marine level layer. They're coming in from other locales. But other than that, pretty safe to trust most form coming in, I would think.
You mentioned Gun Runner winning the Classic when you were there. Of course, last year, the Classic 1, 2, 3 finishers were New York, and Japan. Japan won 2 races in the 2021 edition at Del Mar. So they can come from just about anywhere, and they will from all corners of the globe for this year's Breeders' Cup. We've got horses, South African natives, South American natives. You got the horses from the Far East. You got the horses from Europe. Really a true representation from around the globe this year in the Breeders' Cup. Should be a fantastic event. We'll talk a little Breeders' Cup at the top of this podcast, but of course, those of you who follow the First Call podcast year round, we talk about handicapping weekend stakes races. So we've got 8 picks for you coming up here on the show for stakes races that are in the near and the now. And we'll look ahead to the Breeders' Cup just a little bit off the top. Scott and I are going to talk about the Juvenile and the Classic a little bit on today's podcast. So Breeders' Cup Juvenile is not going to have the biggest field in the world, the field of 9. We don't have the horse from New York who was so impressive, Napoleon Solo. But what we do have is Bob Baffert with a couple West Coast hands to play, and Todd Pletcher with a hand to play with Ted Nafi in here. Pletcher and Baffert have teamed to win the last 4 editions of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So does the race just to run through one of those 2 big barns?
Well, I mean, you would think so. As a gambler, you want to maybe try to poke holes in them. You've got Ted Nafi, who answered the 2-turn question last time, despite some sprinty pedigree on the bottom side for Pletcher and Spendthrift, who had a strong Keeneland meet. And then you've got Bryan, who has to answer the question. They've got $3 million that says he can get 2 turns. That's what they spent for this one at the OBS March sale earlier this year. So they've got to answer. He's got to one has to answer a distance question. One has to answer the question shipping out west. Those are questions to potentially be answered, So I mean, you're going to get a lot better prices on a horse, maybe like Blackout Time to step up, or one that I know that you scored out on last time. How you feeling about Intrepido's chances?
Well, they're going to supplement him, and that tells you they're pretty confident, right? I mean, they was not an original Breeders' Cup nominee, so they had to pony up the $100,000 to go forth to the Breeders' Cup. So I think that's a pretty significant confidence move. And coming out of the race, I want to see how he's training, study a little bit more on the workout videos, and see how he gallops up to the race, because that was a taxing race last time out in the race, the American Pharaoh at Santa Anita. He was in between horses the whole way and really had to work at the end, kind of a journalism-like victory where he was grinding to him and just wanted it more, it seemed like, in watching him win that race. We'll see how he bounces back out of the race. But Brant, like you said, has to answer the 2-turn question. He won the Del Mar Futurity, so we know he can handle the track at Del Mar. Can he handle the 2 turns? That'll be the big question in the Juvenile. Ted Nafi, really, if he travels, he'll be tough, right? I mean, what we've seen from him at Saratoga and what we saw from him at Keeneland certainly makes him look to be the cream of the crop. And we'll see if Pletcher can get another one to go along with Forte and a fierceness, and he's had some success in this race in very recent times. So Pletcher may have another one there with Ted Nafi. Let's talk some Breeders' Cup Classic. The news today, 2 bits of news out of the Classic today. Locke will not go forth. He was pre-entered, but he will not make the entry box. Locke has been retired after an illness is going to knock him out of the Breeders' Cup, a reported illness. So I'm not sure what that disclosure is, but he's not going to race again. He's headed to stud now. So no locked in the Breeders' Cup Classic. There were 11 entered in the pre-entries. So we're at 10. One of those is the rabbit in here, contrary thinking for Chad Brown. He's in to set some pace for Sierra Leone, the defending champ in the race. Let's talk rabbits just for a second, Scott. You like the concept? Don't like the concept? Twitter seems all a buzz about it, but Twitter's a buzz about everything.
Yeah, Twitter might not be a real world, but it's my real world at times. But it doesn't bother me because it's part of what's been going on in racing forever. It's just part of the way it's gone. And in this race, it bothers me even less because of what looks like a clear lack of speed. I just don't like to watch. I don't think it's as enjoyable to watch races, big races or any races, when they're just crawling on the front end and there's really not much of a chance for horses from the back, or at least you feel that way much of the way. So I don't have a real problem with it. And, in terms of this race, the rabbit, it's going to help the closers, but I don't see another speed. And remember, when he had his biggest impact was in the Whitney, when he didn't break well, and there were two other speed type long shots. Phileas Fogg wasn't a huge price, but there was a New York bred, I forget the name of Gold Square horse, and he had to have the lead type Gold something, I think, a New York bred. But anyhow, there's not that here. I think they're just going to let him run his race. Will it make it better for the closers? Probably, but I don't think he's going to have a huge impact.
All right. Contrary thinking on the rabbit in there. Now, you've got Fierceness, who's going to be one of the favorites off of a win in the last race, the Pacific Classic, his last race over the track. He was second in this race last year after attending a very wicked pace. We forget how fast Dermo Sotogake ran on the front end in last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, this was like 45 and change, 109 and change. The splits along the way were just fabulously quick for a 1.25 mile race. Fierceness was kind of in that mix all the way, and Forever Young was closer to that pace than usual as well, and he hung in there for third. It certainly helped the cause for Sierra Leone to pick up a lot of pieces as fast as they went early, but kind of some extra plaudits in there to Fierceness and Forever Young for as well as they ran. And going back and watching that video from last year, they're back on tracks we know they like. I mean, what do you make of last year's 1-2-3 rematch in the Breeders' Cup? I haven't gone back and looked, but I can't remember the last time the top three from the Breeders' Cup were all back the following year.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty wild, especially one being international to add to it. But I think, my stance on that race is the same stance I've had on the winner for a while. He cannot win without a setup. And that's the problem with the rat. If you're asked why he needs the rabbit, there's other horses that are closers that have proven that they can win other ways. I think he got the dream set up that day, and he was just best. And he's a very good closer when he doesn't have to get in a dogfight and when he's got the big setup and he's got all the momentum. Otherwise, I think the race, I think Fierceness ran the best last year, and I think Forever Young's the major wild card coming in. So I have far more interest in those two taking on Sovereignty. Maybe an unpopular take may make me look bad. I just don't see a world where Sovereignty runs his race and Sierra Leone is all that competitive with him to the wire.
One thing I'm very confident in, I haven't looked up when the last time the top three from the Breeders' Cup Classic all came back the next year, but I'm certain without even cracking open a book or scanning any website that we've never had the 1-2-3 in the Kentucky Derby and the 1-2-3 from the returning Breeders' Cup Classic in the same race. I guarantee you that has not happened. And it's remarkable because we talk about, horses don't stick around or they don't stay together. They can't keep a campaign going. To have the top three from the Kentucky Derby all make the Breeders' Cup Classic is impressive in its own right when you have Sovereignty, who won 2/3 of the Triple Crown, Journalism, the runner-up in the Derby, who won the Preakness, and then Baeza, who was third in two of those races, or third in one, second in the other, and then won the Pennsylvania Derby. So to have all three of them back, along with the three from last year's Breeders' Cup Classic, a remarkable achievement in stability in a division, which we just don't get. I think it's luck and happenstance, and also a little bit of sportingness, by some of these connections to bring the horses back at age 4. Certainly Fierceness could have went to the breeding shed, being a Breeders' Cup champion, a Travers winner last year. He was worth a mint, could have went to the breeding shed. shed. Sierra Leone could have easily retired after winning the Breeders' Cup Classic and saying his page for breeding is never going to look better than this, right? Go while you're hot. He certainly could have retired last year, and of course, Forever Young, coming back and running in Saudi Arabia, running in Dubai, and now running back here in the States at age 4. That is a feather in the cap. And as for the 3-year-olds this year, they're where they're supposed to be, right? They were the big 3 all season in this crop, and they're where they should be in the Breeders' Cup Classic. So should be a really cool edition of the race. We're going to handicap it in more detail, more of a view from above in this week's episode. Next week on Thursday, we're going to drop the podcast a day earlier than usual. First call will go on Thursday next week. Scott and I'll do more serious handicapping about the Breeders' Cup. And be sure to check out the Breeders' Cup wager guide from First and Express Bet. That is available now with tons of information that you can download and access, free to access. Handicappers on all 14 divisions will have picks submitted early next week, but already in the guide now, a slew, dozens of workouts that you can check out from First TV, tons of stats and information from past Breeders' Cups, trends, handicapping angles, some profiles of the major players in this year's Breeders' Cup, and more. Be sure to check out the Breeders' Cup wager guide. Go to news.first.com and then click on the wager guide tab. Access it now, free, and it will be updated each day between now and the Breeders' Cup. So check out all the new information there. Scott and I's podcast also will be inserted in there, as well as the Horse Sense podcast with Scott and Bailey Armour. All right, let's get into some handicapping for this weekend, right? We've got to build the bankroll. We've got a Breeders' Cup Bankroll Builder promotion with First Bet and Express Bet, and we're literally going to try to build the bankroll with your picks here on the podcast this week, Scott. So without further ado, for those of you on our audio channels, here is a list of the races Scott and I will handicap over the next 20 minutes or so. And for those of you on X and watching on YouTube, be sure to like and share out and comment on these podcasts to help us grow the audience. Here's our weekend stakes schedule, and we are sorry to Umberto Rispoli that 1 week after putting him in the new graphics celebrating aboard journalism, he got sacked and is no longer the writer for journalism. So like the Sports Illustrated cover jinx, I guess the first call graphic jinx, we're going to leave Umberto up there, though. Great shot. So here are the 8 races we're going to handicap from Keeneland on Saturday, closing day of the fall meet at Keeneland, the Bowman Mill for 2-year-old sprinters, the Bryan Station for 3-year-old turfers, and the Fayette in the older handicap division. To Gulfstream Park, we'll go for the Our Dear Peggy Stakes on Saturday. Then to Santa Anita, the Tokyo City and the Twilight Derby, both early in the card. Shorter field sizes in those, but some good quality runners at the top end. To Horseshoe Indy, it's a big state-bred stakes day. The Lady Foghorn will be our stakes race we handicap from Indianapolis on Saturday. And then Best of Ohio Day. Scott Shapiro gets the dot the I in OHIO this week. Mahoning Valley, Best of Ohio Sprint will be our race that we feature. Breeders' Cup Bankroll races coming up this weekend. Today on Friday at Keeneland, they run the Valley View Stakes. If you bet $25 with First Bet and Express Bet on the Valley View Stakes, you'll get $5 added into your wagering account. That'll be deposited right before the Breeders' Cup starts later next week. So Breeders' Cup Bankroll Builder's pretty simple. We pick the races. You bet $25 on those races. Any intra-race bet that is offered is part of the promotion. You bet $25. We put $5 in your account. Well, actually, not we. Scott and I aren't doing it, but the marketing people in their big deep pockets are going to throw the money in there. Unless Shap wants to just kind of empty out and give everybody $5. I'm not volunteering for that service, though.
If I pick the winner of the Best of Ohio, I'll consider it. All right, how about that?
All right. So Breeders' Cup Bankroll race today is the race from Keeneland, that being the Valley View. On Saturday, it'll be the Twilight Derby, so we'll give you some help on that one. And then on Sunday, it's the Autumn Mist Stakes at Santa Anita as well. So those are your 3 Breeders' Cup Bankroll Builder races. Let's get it started. Keep the bees buzzing here. The Bowman Mill from Keeneland, the first one we've got coming up for you. Let's talk about race number 6 on Saturday at Keeneland. 6 furlongs for the 2-year-old Shap. Who do you like in this spot? A note for you and the other fans out there. Number 3, outfielder Will Scratch. He's running in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint.
Good info, because he was a major player. So that leaves us with one Ward winning the race last year with a long neck Paula, Philly, right?
Right.
So obviously Wesley very capable in here, and probably a positive sign that he thinks he only needs one when he had 2 strong ones, although the Breeders' Cup probably trumping it. Heartily, who I know you're a fan of, and we'll take a look at it in a moment. Certainly a major player in here, coming back off 3 weeks rest, as is Spun DMC off a big maiden victory. But I think there's going to be an honest pace in here, as you would expect.
Mhm.
And I think Gallivan, who went to the lead last time but was down along the inside the way the race played out, now with an outside post, lost to a horse named Local Knowledge who ran a 94 buyer, big effort for a Pletcher first-time starter.
Yeah.
Losing that race to me is not necessarily worse, or, I think he kind of faced equal competition, if you will, than what he's facing now, at least at the top of that race. I think Gallivan, who's well-bred, you don't see a lot of LNJ Foxwood horses with Ben Colebrook, but this is a homebred that they took to Colebrook because he had Fancy Dress Party the dam and was successful with her. She was precocious for him. So I'll go with Gallivan here as a maiden in the stakes race.
Speed hasn't been as good at Keeneland this meet as it been most meets at Keeneland. And it was really not good opening couple days of the meet. In fact, on the first 2 days of racing, there were no wire-to-wire winners on Friday. There were no wire-to-wire winners on Saturday, including Gallivant trying to do so, until the last race of the card on the second day of the meet. The first wire-to-wire winner was Heartily, and that's why I like him. He overcame a track that wasn't playing to speed, and watch him re-break in the lane here. Very impressive.
Heartily is the leader by a length and a half. Telecaster gives chase in second by a length. Helmet of Will third, trying to scoot up the inside with a quarter mile to go, but has to catch Heartily. And now Helmet of Will switches off the rail, comes up to the outside to challenge. Steel Golden is running late. Boonesboro, Circle Me. Steel Golden coming down the center of the track. 7 lengths behind the lead, though, of Heartily. And Heartily in front by a 6-length margin at the 16th pole. It is Heartily for John Velasquez, his 5th win on this card. Late run from Liberty Valance to challenge at the wire for second, but no catching. Heartily.
That was a 5-win day for Johnny V. He's had a really good meet. He spent a couple days up in New York, missed a day for some personal reasons. Hasn't ridden that many mounts, but he's riding at an elite level at this Keeneland meet. Johnny V with 11 victories so far at Keeneland, 5 of those coming in that big first Saturday of the meet. I've got the one Heartily. Scott's got the 6 Gallivant. We'll try to make some money there in race number 6, the Bowman Mill at Keeneland. To the 8th, we go at Keeneland on Saturday. What a meet it has been for the sire, not this time on the turf. 7 of his offspring have won turf races at Keeneland this meet. Many of them 2-year-olds, all on the grass for not this time. And what happens in this race? You say, well, wow, look, I'll take the 1. He's by not this time. Then you realize as you go down the list, 7 of the damn horses in this race are sired by not this time. So much for a handicapping angle in the Bryan station. But the not this times have been absolutely incredible in the turf here. I'm going to take one of them, but there's 7 in the race. So let's talk Bryan station. Who do you like?
Well, I do give a not this time a shot. Yeah, surprise. But it's a 20-1 version in Macera, who I almost picked. But I'm a big fan of number 10, Simulate. So I'm going to play, if there was prop bets, I might play no, not this time, Cole.
Yeah, that's probably the best gamble you can find in there when there's 7 against you.
Yeah, exactly. I will take Kitten's Joy in this race with Simulate, who I think this is a fun race. This is a good race. I could easily make cases for at least half the field. Pretty much real good effort, 3 back in the before the Secretariat, and then we're going to take a look at the Secretariat, which was won by Giacoso, who's the lukewarm morning line favorite in here. But that was a tale of 2 trips. We won't see most of it. But Giacoso came up the inside while Simulate was caught wide that day, and It was a difference. It was a length difference maker. The Nashville Derby, I'm not going to worry about. That was a grade 3 at Kentucky Downs. Was maybe the one race that was maybe better than the grade that it was given as opposed to lesser. But that was a good race. It was a mile and 5/16. I'm going to put a line through it and hope that he's ready to roll here off the freshening for Bill Mott.
Let's go back to Colonial Downs, take a look at that Secretariat Stakes. The rematch is on between Giacoso and Scott's top pick, Simulate. Let's go to Colonial's voice, Jason Beam, and the great words of George Jones. The race is on, as he likes to say.
Antisocial now within a neck on the outside as Maui Strong travels nicely. Cairo Caper, here's Dream On warming up, and Dream On coming with a 3 or 4 wide sweep on the outside. Meanwhile, Giacoso is going to stay bottled up toward the inside. Going to need to find a seam as Maui Strong Antisocial. Dream On coming with that big 4 wide move. Cairo Caper is right there and amongst horses. Giacoso going to look for a way through. Simulate is in behind horse with Anagata. They stack right across the track. Dream On toward the center. Simulate trying to run on right down the crown of the track. Giacoso meanwhile comes through down at the fence. Giacoso's narrowly in front. Antisocial right there. Down the far outside goes Simulate. They come to the wire. It's Giacoso took the shortest way home and wins the Secretariat Stakes. Simulate an antisocial. We're in a photo there for second. After that was Enagata and Dream On.
He said, when you're watching a race replay, can you flip the result somehow? What excuse or what reasoning do we have for the result that we saw? And how can it be different? Like you said, one took the overland route, one took the inside. And if we get different kind of trips here, we could see a different result. Final Gambit is the horse who we know about from the Triple Crown Series, his big win in the Jeff Ruby earlier this year. He's got some eye-popping, brisk, late-pace figures. I think he's going to finish very strong in this mile. I actually like him at shorter distances, so I think cutting back to a mile is going to serve him pretty well in this spot. Scott, I don't know if I'm just a sucker for punishment or what, but I've been brutalized in taking Luan Machado so many times this meet where I was frustrated at the end of it. I don't know why, but I'm going back to the well one more time. I don't know the definition of insanity or whatever you want to say, or if I just like getting hit over the head with a hammer. But I'm going to try Final Gambit one more time in here. I think he'll get some pace. And again, I've been waiting for him to shorten this horse up. I think his best trip is a faster pace in a shorter distance with him trying to come get him. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe you're right. I kind of looked at it. Maybe the miles seem sharp for him, only just the way Brad Cox has managed him more so than anything else. I wonder if he's kind of, Brad might have told us something when he won the Ruby and then finished fourth in the Kentucky Derby, and he didn't even consider the Belmont. And we were all kind of wondering. I think he knows what this horse is. I think he's a nice horse. I don't think he's a superstar. And if he's going to be one of the favorites in this race, having to come from last to first, I'm a little leery. But you're right. Those late pace ratings on Brisnet tell the story that if there is a fast pace and they are finishing from the back, he very well could be the one making the last move.
How are you going to pick against a Not This Time? There's only one.
Well, there's
only a 7 and 10
I love Not This Time in the. Actually, I don't, but I love Not This Time in the Bryan Station.
What's funny is like Not This Time had a very short racing career. Turned out to be one of the most influential young sires we have. Into Mischief, very short racing career, tremendous sire. All the talk about, you don't want to breed to these, brittle kind of horses that had the short careers. Well, a lot of people did. They have prolific numbers, but they're getting results. I don't know if they're going to get stability out of them, but they're certainly getting results.
Wasn't Pioneer of the Nile pretty lightly raced? Did he?
Yeah, Pioneer of the Nile.
Maybe not. Maybe he wasn't. No.
Not as lightly raced as those horses.
Yeah, sure. No. I'm thinking of another horse that was a California horse that ran a huge number a couple times. Sprinter. He ran that real big number. He was a good sire. Hardly ever raced. I can't remember who it was. It was a long time ago. He ran like a monster number that was like one of the bigger numbers ever. But anyhow, good point.
Let's try the Fayette Stakes, huh? Race number 9 next up. Mile and an eighth. Great Free Company. We're transitioning. Let's get the older horses going 9 furlongs. Let's get some stamina and distance out of these runners. You got Hit Show in here, Dubai World Cup winner from earlier in the year. Obviously a step down from running in the Breeders' Cup Classic, as you would expect, maybe from a Dubai World Cup winner. But this horse is probably placed where he belongs, and smartly so, in this grade 3 worth $250,000. But not an easy field. You got a couple 3-year-olds in here like Gosger and Bracket Buster, who have been pretty effective as maybe in that 5 to 10 category of the better 3-year-olds. We know there's like a clear-cut top 3, and they're all going in the Breeders' Cup Classic with, of course, Sovereignty, Journalism, and Baeza. And then below then, you can start making some argument for the Gosgers and the Bracket Busters and horses like that. So a pretty good field when you get 2 of those 3-year-olds taking on elders in this particular spot, and some veterans who have done some damage over the years. You got Rattle and Roll in here, Honor Marie. Moonlight's a horse I actually think is on the come and might be interesting in this spot at a price. So how did you end up seeing the Fayette?
Well, I saw this one the way you saw the last race we discussed. Hopefully there's a lot of speed. I do think there is plenty of speed in here. I think Dilger has to go, trying the mile and an eighth. Prince of Power has to go. And then you've got the Dragoon Guards of the world and Bracket Busters, who I think are going to be right up and on it, and even Lambeth down on the inside. So I think we're going to get an honest pace here, and the 9 furlongs, could be a difference maker. And I'm going to hope it's the horse making the last move with Hit Show, who I think is pretty honest. You kind of know what you're going to get from this horse, especially if he gets an honest pace. Sometimes he's just, they take chances with him above his level, kind of a poor man Skippy Longstocking, maybe a poor man, 8.5 million earnings, but that's because of one race. but yeah. But anyhow, this is a very realistic spot. He won the race last year, albeit lesser version of this race. This is a stronger group, but he wins races when he's in the mix, shown by his 10-for-21 record. He gets Irad, who I think is a much better fit than Florent, who will be on Dragoon Guard. So I think Hit Show is going to come rolling late.
He's 2 for 2 over the track at Keeneland, and he kind of announced his presence in a 2-year-old race back here a couple years ago. He's now age 5, but 3 years ago in the fall meet, I remember Hit Show was one of the most impressive 2-year-olds of the fall, and said, hey, this is one to put on our Triple Crown consideration. Of course, then he went through the New York preps onto the Triple Crown, and now still at age 5, still kicking pretty well. He got his signature victory earlier this year as a 5-year-old in Dubai.
And it is Mixto who goes up to challenge Walk of Stars. Forever Young has a mighty task ahead of him. Wilson Tesoro goes with him in 3rd and 4th. Hit Show running on from the back, but it's Mixto who hits the lead here with 150 metres left to go. Mixto for Doug O'Neill and Frankie Dettori. Hit Show out when it's all too late. Look at Hit Show right over the top. Hit Show for Florent Giroux and Brad Cox in the Dubai World Cup. Wins in spectacular.
Big signature win there. You beat Mixed, though. You think it's not a very strong edition of the Dubai World Cup, but behind him was Forever Young, who's going to be one of the top 5 players or so in the Breeders' Cup Classic. That was a bounce for Forever Young in that race. He ran so strong in Saudi Arabia, if you remember. So if you're thinking Breeders' Cup this time of year and you're like, boy, that wasn't very impressive by Forever Young, and that was a weak edition of the Dubai World Cup, he left his race on the racetrack in Saudi Arabia when he went neck and neck with Romantic Warrior, the $20 million earner from Hong Kong. Those two really threw it down. That was a total bounce race for Forever Young. We've seen him back with one prep since towards the Breeders' Cup. So a good race for Hit Show. Not a good race, obviously, in that one for Forever Young, but I wouldn't hold that against him when we talk Breeders' Cup prospects. You've got this race handicapped like I do. I'm looking for the finisher. You went with Hit Show. I went with Moonlight, who's making a big rise in class, but there is a solid pace setup in here. Listen to these brisk late pace figures. 105, 97, 100, 105. This horse has been firing big numbers late. 3 of the last 4 triple digits, a couple 105s. If Moonlight runs another 105 late, he's going to pass a lot of horses. Ty McGaffley, top rider at Keeneland, of course, over the years, having another decent meet, not a dominant meet. I'm going to give a shot to Moonlight, completely overclassed by some of these, but in good form, winning 3 of the last 4. Maybe now's the day.
Chris Block is a very, very good horseman, and I learned that, little bit of hands-on, just kind of, seeing him around, but just watching him win races. Whenever he would ship to Churchill to take on higher class horses, not every time, but his horses were live. He knew which horses to put up to try to raise up. Very good horseman, evidenced by his ROI this year as well as his win percentage.
Yeah, for many years in Chicago, whether it was on the turf at Arlington or the poly track, certainly the Chris Block horses come meriting respect. Let's move our venue from Keeneland now and head to Gulfstream Park on Saturday. We've got the Our Dear Peggy Stakes at a mile on the turf here. These are 2-year-old turf fillies. Not a lot of stakes form in here successfully. You've got some horses who tried races like the Matron and the Ms. Grillo and the PG Johnson in New York, and they're trying to find their way into the right spot. One of these fillies is going to become a stakes winner for the first time because in the field of 11, all looking for that first stakes victory. Who gets the black type, Mr. Shapiro?
Yeah, I'm chalk here because, like you said, there's a lot of fillies in here that might have some form on the dirt or synthetic or sprinting, but not any form really at this level or at 2 turns on the turf and anything close to the form of number 5, Storm's Wake. And as you would suspect in a full field down in Florida of 2-year-olds, there's going to be an honest pace in here, almost definitely.
Sure.
Maybe that's the one concern with Storm's Wake, who lacks speed over a turf course that sometimes is very, very speedy and sometimes just, speed's a little bit of an advantage. If they go an honest pace, I think this number 5, Storm's Wake, daughter of Oscar Performance. Bryan Lynch has gotten a lot out of Oscar Performances. Who's the what's that? Tumbarumba comes to mind for me, but this is one that actually did it on the turf, and she should be coming rolling for win number 3 in my estimation.
You got main track horses in here. You got sprinters stretching out, like you said. Who hits the crossroads at a turf mile at this class level best? Storm's Wake, turf mile at Churchill, last time out in Allowance Company. That should stack up awfully well. Storm's Wake, top choice in race number 9, the Our Dear Peggy. To Santa Anita, we go on Saturday. A couple races early on the card to take a look at here. Races 2 and 5. It'll be the Tokyo City Stakes at a mile for 3-year-olds and up in race number 2. And then they'll go 9 furlongs on the dirt, or on the turf, I should say, in the Twilight Derby in race number 5. All right, Scott, Tokyo City, only 4 entered in this particular spot. We know some of these names, though. Gaming, Privman, we've seen them on some big race days. Privman coming out of the Goodwood. Of course, Gaming was a horse last year in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, a horse who won the Del Mar Futurity. Pony Express, though, is one that we don't know a whole lot about. In a field of 4, it's going to be some inside speed. It's basically been wiring horses. Tried the Jim Dandy, didn't hold up there. Let's see Pony Express most recently, though, and see if you think this horse can take them all the way in Saturday's edition of the Tokyo City.
Any headway whatsoever as the field turns for home. Pony Express turns it on with a 6-length lead. Canada Gate is still in second, indispensable third. It's a strung out field behind Pony Express, who will romp home under Umberto Rispoli, making every pole a winning one. Pony Express will win by 8 when the smoke clears. It'll be close for second, very tight indeed, between Canada Gate and indispensable.
That was the only start of this year for the John Sadler trainee. The Jim Dandy we talk about was last year when going against Fierceness and setting the pace in that one. Can John Sadler beat the Bafferts in here? Baffert's got gaming improvement.
I think this is a big step up in class. If you look at the last race, the runner-up Brazenly is a horse that has not won in some time. And you look back at the other race he won, that wasn't a very strong group. So he's the kind of horse that seems to be very visually impressive and fast when he has things his way, and then not the same when he doesn't. And I just think the Baffert duo of Gaming and Privman, along with even Mining District, has enough early gas to keep them honest in here. I'm not a fan of Gaming in general. I think we've seen the best of them, and Baffert scratched him out of a couple of better, tougher spots. He was very underwhelming with that third. Make sure you realize in the shared belief there were only 3 in there, so don't give him too much credit for hitting the board. Right. I think Privman's going to get the right trip and the right setup in here. I think this is a horse that struggled to win races early, but has kind of figured that out. Maybe the added ground has been the difference since 2 turns. He has won 2 races, and then he ran 3rd in the Goodwood. The outside in a compact group should work to his advantage. So I'll go with Privman here, but you mentioned this race and the next one, the stakes on the card, more competitive in terms of full field later in the card, and I do have a blog up on the Express Bet and First Bet blogs breaking down that pick 5.
All right, late pick 5, Scott's featured handicapping for Saturday at Santa Anita. Let's talk about the Twilight Derby next up in race number 5. This is our Express Bet race of the week. A field of 5 in here. Graham Motion brings Test Score West, and Graham Motion's had a good year shipping to California. He won a couple stakes at Del Mar. He teamed up a couple times with Juan Hernandez to win at Del Mar. Give me another amongst those, Heredia. He's run 7 horses in California this year. Graham Motion, 3 wins, 2 seconds, and a third. When he ships, he means business, apparently. Do you like Test Score in the Twilight Derby, or are you going elsewhere?
I'm going to go elsewhere, and this is a horse that I've kind of been on the right side of. Rarely that happens, but I liked him in the Belmont Derby and didn't like him in the Saratoga Derby. Didn't really take part in the Nashville Derby, but the addition of blinkers, you look at Graham Motion's stats very quickly, and he's got good numbers when he adds blinkers, but not with turf route stakes horses. That's not something he does, These are maybe his lesser horses. I didn't dive in fully. I dove in more to this category, not the ones that he was successful in. But I thought that one might get, you look at the numbers real quick, and I think that is, pops out that he's got positive ROI even with that stat. I think Nameron is the horse on the come here. This is a horse that we talked about some of the horses that were in the gun runner in one of the Keeneland races, the Bryan Station analysis, right? Yeah. And Plensa and Giacoso were a couple of the favorites in there. Well, this horse comes over, Hronis and Sadler, who get plenty of horses from overseas as well as anywhere. 14-horse field, and he gets bet down to 7-2 off of German form, which, that was a 14-horse field to get back. This barn, or Hronis, they bet that, when they like their horses, so the fact this horse took money and then ran as well as he did, I think bodes very well for him. That was a $2 million race that I wouldn't say rushed to get into, but that was clearly the plan. So I think Nameron might have a bright future here for Hronis and Sadler.
Yeah, you mentioned Plenza Giacosa ran 1-2 in that race in the gun runner. Namaron third. The Bryan station at Keeneland post is 4:44 Eastern. This post for the Twilight Derby is 6:05 Eastern. So you're going to know the result of the Bryan station, see how those horses run back if you like to compare like that, to try to assess a little company line, give a barometer maybe on Namaron. That might be a way to do it. Again, Bryan station goes off about an hour and 20 minutes before the Twilight Derby. Well, in honor of my good buddy Jeff Siegel, who used to throw these videos at me like just to kind of cross me up a little bit, I think I'm doing this on Jeff's behalf because we need to learn a little bit more about Namaron, and language barriers be damned. We're going to Germany and Baden-Baden, baby. We're going to take a look at Namaron in action, and whether or not you can tell what the commentator says. I know Jeff's laughing at us for using this video. Let's go with a little second place finish at Baden-Baden for Namaron 2 starts back.
Vorne an Montanus heran und vorbei. Namaron macht sich auf die Verfolgung vor Short Final, vor Best Lightning an der Außenseite Switch, und dann ist es Words of Peace hier gerade längst erreicht. Penalty an der Innenseite muss sich mächtig strecken, denn die Gegner, die kommen außen, die kommen überall. Namaron, Best Lightning an der Außenseite Switch und Short Final ist auch noch mit dabei. Penalty an der Innenseite, Namaron, Switch, Short Final läuft ein Riesenrennen. Namaron an der Außenseite, Short Final ist da. Das wäre eine Riesensensation. Short Final von Namaron außen. Short Final entführt den Sieg nach Frankreich und gewinnt gegen Namaron.
Octoon, baby. I tell you, Jeff used to throw those videos at me. I'd be like, are you sure we want to show this? And he's like, absolutely. It's about the horses, not the commentators. So had a little fun with that. But Namaron was a good strong finish there. That's what you're looking for on Saturday. If you can get a good close out of this one at 1 mile and 1/8, certainly showed it last time at the mile trip.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I'm a little worried about the pace, but I think if it bunches up, it might work to his advantage too. And I just see what they like that horse in that race. And that means something to me because they know more about this horse than I do. Straight up.
I got one in here I'm going to throw a little curveball at with September 64. This horse is going long for the first time. This pattern is identical to a horse named Muni, M-U-N-Y, who won this race in 2008 for Mike Pipey. The exact same pattern. 4th start after coming out of a maiden and allowance race, stretching out. Mike Pipey's kind of one of those crafty, shrewd veteran trainers. He's not having the greatest year at 12%, but we know he can win some big races. This kind of just feels like a paceless race, like you said. You're not sure where the pace is going to come from. He's going to set it at 1 mile and 1/8 on the inside and just see how far they can go. And I can see Kimura just, don't slow it down. Just go and don't try to back it up, because if they back it up, the field's going to run over him probably in the stretch. So I'm going to see if September 64 can string him out a little bit and hold on for a piece in here. I think this is the horse, if you're playing an exacta, who probably gets nailed by 1 and runs second in here. But if everything goes right, and it did for Muni back in 2008 in this race, it could be a Mike Pipey deja vu.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing about what you're hoping for, which is that, the runoff, but the positive runoff, not the one you don't want, is that he did it last time and didn't hold as a 2-1 favorite. So they might take a little more of a hold. But otherwise, I agree with that strategy. He just went real fast last time. They went fast with the 2 Namaron in that race at Kentucky Downs. He was way out. I hope he's sitting second. I hope he's the one, because I test score to me, if he runs his race, he wins for fun, right? But I got a few questions.
I mean, when you're trying to pace scenario or race out, the horse sitting second in this race is probably up a higher percentage. I mean, like, they are going to get the beneficial trip, right? Like, if you thought a horse had 20% chance to win and they get to sit second in this trip, you better bump them up to about 35-40% chance to win, because it's going to be a dream scenario. The horse in front, you don't think can go 1 mile and 1/8. You think he comes back, you get first run on him. I mean, it's the dream spot to be in this race is sitting second. Whoever can get it, their chance of winning certainly increases. Let's go next to Horseshoe, Indianapolis. We got a big state bred stakes day for the Indiana breds coming up on Saturday. This is the Lady Foghorn Stakes at 1 mile and 70 yards. Not Foghorn Leghorn, not the big rooster. We're talking about Lady Foghorn here, who was a nice turf mare. She made about $800,000. Indiana bred, won the Grade 2 Fall City at Churchill for Tony Granitz back in the racing day, a 14-time winner. So she was a good one. The Lady Foghorn handicap, Scott, we've got decent field size in this one of 9. who you ended up with, or who did you
Well,
end up with?
There's 2 state bred races to close the program. I took a swing in the other, and that's why I was willing to maybe think about, taking the load on some of those promotions if the swing wins. But in this race, I was a little bit more formful. I think there's an honest pace in here, and I have a lot of respect following Indiana over the years for John Langemeyer, the trainer, Spooky Hollow Racing, the owner and breeder. That's the organization that do all their work with Indiana breds. And he's a very good horseman. And this filly can really finish on the dirt and on the turf, but especially on the dirt, I think. Look at those late pace ratings on Briz to kind of give you the idea that, yes, better finisher on the dirt than the turf. Love when you can compare the two. So shout out there. But I just think she's going to get the right setup against a similar field she beat last time by, 8 3/4 lengths. So there are horizontals there. There is ways to maybe attack this race otherwise, but I am chalky with Spooky Ridge in the biggest race of the card.
Let's see her make her move last time out at Horseshoe Indy. John Dooley on the mic.
Here comes Spooky Ridge in a white cap, and Spooky Ridge is gaining traction now. Spooky Ridge is looking to pick up Sakura's Quest. It is free last. Molly's Potion is well back. Goody Socks and finally Midnight Caper. It's Spooky Ridge sweeping 3/4 1 minute 14.02 seconds. Spooky Ridge has come from last to first to take command with 1 furlong to go, has pulled clear to a 5-length lead. Innisfree Lass is now staying on to run second. Vortex Express with See You in a Bit and Sakura's Quest with Joe Ramos. Spooky Ridge dominates them. And the Itoba Stallion Season fillies won by 7 from Innisfree Lass.
Interesting. Innisfree Lass was actually favored in that race. She ran second, no match, but the difference in price this time after that blowout victory is going to be quite a bit. The value play could be to come back with Innisfree Lass in this, even though she was no match last time. But again, she was favored in that race over Spooky Ridge. So
Spooky
maybe
Hollow Ridge Racing, Hollow, Spooky, a lot of scary stuff as we approach Halloween at Indiana.
That's true. How are you going to go against that? It's like the 7 not this times. How are you going to go against that? Let's go to Ohio, shall we? And our good friend Jason Allen, who works for graphics in our department, a diehard Michigan alum and fan. So, Jason, close your ears as we talk about the Best of Ohio here. This is from Mahoning Valley. Best of Ohio Stakes here. The Best of Ohio Sprint, 6 furlongs. The trip. This is the race Scott wanted a spotlight in the Best of Ohio Day Series. Race number 8 on the card. You get to dot the I in Ohio as they do at the Horseshoe in Columbus. Who are you taking in the Best of Ohio Sprint?
I disappointed not wearing the Jim Tressel sweater for you, but
yeah, I know. I asked you to.
It was dirty. It was dirty from watching them beat down Wisconsin whenever they just did that. I don't think there's a lot of speed in here, and the reason I picked it is because of, I like a price in here, a 12-1 shot in number 9 City Scene, who I don't think is that much up against it. This daughter of Dominus taking on the boys, but doing so with a pace advantage. I think she's hit the board over this track in all 3 of her starts, 3rd off the layoff, coming in from Thistledown. She's won 11 of 21 in her career. But the real thing, this is a good group, of Ohio bred. You've got horses that have won quite a few races. A lot of these horses have won half their starts or more, including Empire's Fire, who's 16 for 27. So, cool horses to the Ohio scene. Wanted to give them a little love. And I hope it's City Scene springing the upset to Philly against the boys.
All right. Best of Ohio makes its debut here on the podcast. So Scott breaks the maiden with City Scene. Horse he's got on top in the Best of Ohio Sprint. That's going to wrap up our handicapping for the weekend. We appreciate you joining us. Plenty more Breeders' Cup information to come. Again, be sure to access that free Breeders' Cup wager guide. Go to news.first.com and then click on the wager guide link. You can get in there already. Early information already loaded up with all the stats and trends, workout information, everything you need to prepare and handicap as the pre-entry past performances are out now from your various past performance providers. You can start your handicapping and put us on your team for the Breeders' Cup. Check back throughout the course of the week. Entries for Breeders' Cup will come official and post positions drawn on Monday night. So by Tuesday, we will start updating the guide Tuesday with picks for the Friday races. On Wednesday, we'll have all the picks for the Saturday races of Breeders' Cup updated into that Express Bet and First Bet wager guide. So be sure to check that out. Scott, I'll give you the final word here as we roll on to a big weekend of preparation for the Breeders' Cup and some bankroll building for the horse players.
Yes, I'm excited for this week, but also ready to spend my time on those Breeders' Cup races after grinding out some Ohio, some Indiana, a little bit of Tokyo City. We were all around the world,
Yeah.
happening. Germany. We did it all. We're going to focus at Del Mar exclusively next weekend. Really looking forward to that Breeders' Cup Classic. Always look forward to the Juvenile. And I know you're way deeper in your research than me. It seems to me, based on all the news you're telling me. So I got to get catching up.
We got time. We've got time. Enjoy the big racing weekend. May you hit winners from Santa Anita to Baden-Baden. We'll see you next week, everybody.